Welcome to issue 6 of Setting Sun Last Day's Evening News. If you'd like to add or remove your name from the mailing list, email hrministries2@yahoo.com. And if you'd like to check out the content on Facebook, it's Hannah Ruth 961. This issue 6 does have photographs with it. I recently had my 57th birthday, so I've included my colourful photo collage there because it fits in with this title, Duels versus Javelins, and are comparing sort of the King Sauls who chuck javelins at people and try to thrust them through, or duels like Queen Elizabeth II, who's just recently passed away on 8th of September. So this is in honour of her memory. And though I will meet her on Resurrection Day when all the saints, true believers, shall be raised up in the resurrection to meet the Lord in the air, and we shall see our Saviour face to face. She was a Christian who knew when she landed the throne at 26 that God put her there. So she was a picture of elegance all her life, lived her whole life above reproach, and so I hold the lady in high esteem because she bore good fruit. But anyway, if you're not a Facebook member, I do recommend joining up. It's a free, user-friendly service, and then you've got access to all of Hannah Ruth Ministries' site, or you can email me at hrministries2@yahoo.com, and I can send you the link, which lets you access the album whether you're a Facebook member or not. But good value to join up. It's free, so why not? Anyway, I've drawn a contrast between, which is quite a stark contrast, between the graciousness of Queen Elizabeth II compared to the history of royalty. Back in Samuel's day, we had the corrupt judges, like the first king to jury got introduced through King Saul being voted in by the people, sort of thing. Samuel was the last judge of Israel, and he was, upset when the people demanded, they wanted a king to fight their battles for them and do justice for them. And God said to Samuel, don't take offence, it's me they've rejected, not you. So anyway, they got their king in Saul, but he failed God's high and holy standard. So God anointed for himself another king to replace Saul, which naturally Saul felt threatened when he saw the anointing on young David, and David was only a youth at the time. But young David, because of the power of God upon him, he managed to kill Goliath, this huge giant, and the Philistine army was defeated then by the armies of Israel, whom the blasphemous Philistines had defied the armies of God. And but one young youth, David, went running into the battle line and slew Goliath with a sling and a stone, and no sword in his hand. And he was, he had the power of God on him. Well, when they were coming back into the city of Jerusalem, the dancing ladies came out and they were singing songs of, Saul has slain his thousands and David his tens of thousands. So King Saul from that day on eyed him very jealously because he thought, what more can he have but the kingdom? They're ascribing to David tens of thousands and to me, the king, only thousands. So it only compounded matters when King Saul's next to the throne, Jonathan, next in line for the throne, his son, entered into a covenant with David and basically handed him the keys, even though his father was on the throne. So even that was treasonous, really, despite the fact that he was family. And so Saul even felt murderous towards his own son. But he said, don't you realise, you're giving him the kingdom, sort of thing. But David was anointed to be king, and Jonathan knew it. He recognised God's hand on David's life. Anyway, that was back in 1 Samuel chapter 18, if you want to read the account of how suddenly Saul started throwing javelins at young David, intent on killing him. I'll thrust him through, he said, and pin him to the wall. But David managed to escape him twice on that count, and then had to flee and go live in the wilderness and live in the cave of Adullam, and a band of men came and joined him out there. He was always meant to prosper. So in the end, he did wind up on the throne after Saul and Jonathan died in battle against the Amalekites, and the rest was history from there. But it's always been touch and go with the royals because the king or the queen is always a target because they have the power. So therefore, any conflict of power and power shifts that go on all the time, they've got to bump off the one on the top to then swing the favour into their side, where they can then seize power, do a coup or whatever, and grab the throne. So it was, in fairness to the royals, I'm not just trying to be disparaging when I sort of hang out the dirty laundry here. I mean, we've all got skeletons in our closet, but just the royals really played for keeps. But the idea is to bring the contrast of how Queen Elizabeth II got to live to be a ripe old age of 96 and spend 70 plus years on the throne. So because she was a graceful Protestant Christian lady. And the Catholic faith, like back in Saul's day, that was when Jews had their independence and this sort of thing. But in the course of time, the Roman Empire overtook Jewry, and then the Roman Catholic Church overtook religion and totally seized upon the Christian faith and made it their own, and made the popes, Roman popes, and then any country goes sort of thing. But it all became very corrupt, and the monks would translate the scriptures to the common people. Nobody was allowed to have the scriptures, and they were kept in ignorance. It's the medieval times in the 15th and 16th century were referred to, and through to 17th century, were referred to as the Dark Ages, because it really was dark, like the light of God's word was being withheld from the people. It was corrupt monks, and the Roman Catholic system was all about raising money and revenue to build their big fancy churches and this and that. They were building jewels unto themselves. They reckoned it was for God's sake, but Jesus said in John 16:2, there'll come a day when they will kill you, thinking they're doing God a service, but that's because they never knew the Father or me, sort of thing. Like for Roman Catholics and the Pope and a corrupt papacy to burn martyr after martyr at the stake because they were being faithful to the scriptures, that is not doing God a service. But anyway, in the course of time, King Henry VIII came onto the scene. He was born 1491 and died 1547 at the age of 55. But he decided to do away with the papacy because in those days, the medieval times, there was like a two-horned rulership where the papacy ruled the church side of things, and they could even put kings and monarchs to death. But so anybody who sinned against the church, so-called church, the Roman Catholic religion, it's a cult as far as I'm concerned, they were burned at the stake. But anybody who committed a crime, especially treason against the crown, they were beheaded with the sword. So that's why you see the difference between how people were killed off in those days in the medieval times. But it was a regular thing for the death penalty to apply one way or the other. So anyway, King Henry VIII thought, well, I'm sick of this, because he wanted to take a second wife, and so the Catholic system was saying, no way, that's adultery. But King Henry VIII wanted a male heir, and all of his young males were dying off. So he needed an heir, and so he wound up having 6 wives in the end, but 2 of those he beheaded. So, I mean, easy dispatch. If you don't want your wife anymore, cut her head off. So he's pretty suspect in the way that he handled things. But like I say, kings would get paranoid, sort of thing. If they thought anybody was being treasonous of heart against them, they needed to watch their backs, because they were a target to be removed from the throne so that some other power could shift in. But in those days, in the medieval time, the real war was between Catholicism and Protestantism. Protestants. But anyway, the Catholic Church had very real power. Like I said, they could kill monarchs and kings even. So they were a very real force to be reckoned with, very dark, sinister force. And keeping people in ignorance, and because if people could read the scriptures, there was genuine concern that then people could mistranslate the scriptures or misinterpret, and just everybody be running off, and the devil could run off with the Christian faith. That was a valid sort of argument, but it was also that they just wanted the power. So thanks to martyrs like William Tyndale, and he's not the only one, of course, but he's one that I've got a video on him, and he really touches my heart. But he was a very educated man, knew several languages and whatnot, and he lost his life in his 40s, burned at the stake, because he did the job of giving us the Bible in the Christian language, in the English language, Old English language. King Henry VIII, after getting rid of the papacy, he declared himself the king, he declared himself supreme head of the Church of England. So now he had separated from papacy and he was excommunicated for that. As it was, William Tyndale got martyred, burned at the stake, but King Henry VIII died at the age of 55. But before, his positive thing that he did was that he did eventually endorse an authorised version of the Bible, but he still was holding to Catholicism as far as tenets and creed of faith went. So in 1603 or 4, was it, King, who was it? Got a chronology here thanks to Google and Wikipedia that made it easy for me to do my research into the royals here, but it was modified, the Bible that King Henry VIII authorised after he separated the church in 1534 from the papacy. He ended up authorising the Bible and letting that go out to print. But then it got modified by King James I in 1604, and it wound up being the 1611 King James Version revised that we still revere today, because that was to iron out the Catholic discrepancies. But so we have the Bible as it stands today, thanks to those three main players, sort of thing. King Henry VIII, who endorsed publication, William Tyndale and other such martyrs that lost their life for translating into a language that even a ploughboy could understand, and then King James the One. So many kings here. King James the One who gave us the KJV 1611 that we know today. Anyway, that's how the Protestant faith got introduced into England. So just sort of giving for connection and also to show the contrast of what a difference it made to have the Protestant faith established in the land compared to when Catholicism ruled the land. When it was Catholics, it was, blood and mayhem constantly. But and initially, when that transition was happening, there was still great conflict happening. For instance, the only son surviving King Henry VIII, when he was having trouble getting a male heir, so he took on 6 wives, but the only male son to survive him was King Edward VI, who was a devout Protestant, so that was a real positive thing for England. However, he only lived from 1537 to 1553, died at the age of 15, didn't even make 16, because he got sick. So back because they didn't have the modern medical systems that we have these days, if they got tuberculosis or just pneumonia and whatever, they would die, because it's a cold, wet country and they just didn't have the means of getting healthy. So that was a real blow to the country. But I think it makes me think of Isaiah 57 verses 1 to 2, where the righteous perisheth, and no man layeth it to heart, and merciful men are taken away, none considering that the righteous is taken away from the evil to come. He shall enter into peace, they shall rest in their beds, each one walking in his uprightness. So young King Edward VI was spared all, the turmoils of life. He got to opt out, and didn't opt out, he died by natural means of ill health at the tender age of 15. But it was his concern, the next in line for the throne was his half-sister Mary I, and she got the nickname Bloody Mary, because now that the monarchy had control over anything considered heretical, she didn't kill people by the sword. She burned more than 280 martyrs at the stake. She only ruled for 5 years, mind you, but no wonder she got the nickname Bloody Mary in that short time, because she was intent where King Edward VI, in his short reign, he started ruling at the age of 9, died at 15, but in that time he brought radical Protestant reform to the UK and all the Commonwealth realm. So Mary I took charge to turn it back to Catholic reinstatement. And yet before young Edward VI died, he foresaw this. I mean, he was a discerning young Christian. And so he, the leading politicians at the time named Lady Jane Grey to be the next queen, and instead of Mary I, who was a half sister, and she was born to the first wife of Henry VIII. So, as it was, Mary I, being a very aggressive Catholic, took charge anyway and had Lady Jane Grey wiped out, beheaded after 9 days queen. So she got to live a very short time as queen. But very unfortunate. I mean, this is just the way royalty worked at the time. Was people were vying for power, so it's like who is in line for the throne. So anyway, Mary I started her reign and had 5 years, and in that time reinstated Catholicism and burned more than 280 Christian souls at the stake for so-called heresy, for being Protestants true to the word of God, as opposed to Catholic corruption. And then Elizabeth I, so not Elizabeth II, who we have just recently lost in September 8, but Elizabeth I, who was born 1533 and died at 1603 at the age of 69. So she didn't quite make 10, but lived longer than what most did. But she was a Protestant, and she had the throne after she was a half-sister, I think, to King Edward VI. And Elizabeth I was brought into conflict with Mary, the Queen of Scots, which is a different Mary to Mary I, who only lived 5 years. But Mary, the Queen of Scots, was forced to abdicate, and because of all the turmoil and where Protestantism had gained great sway, and she was a Catholic, but she contested Queen Elizabeth I, saying that she's an illegitimate offspring because she was born to the second wife of King Henry VIII, and that was a common held belief by the Catholics at that time, was that because according to the Bible, it's adultery. If a man divorces his first wife and takes on a second wife, it's adultery. So as far as this Mary, Queen of Scots, was concerned, she was the great niece of King Henry VIII, and so she figured she was more in line for the throne than what Queen Elizabeth I was. So when she was forced to abdicate, though, as Queen of Scots, she fled to her cousin Mary, to her cousin Elizabeth I. So Mary, Queen of Scots, now came to Queen Elizabeth I, who she didn't agree with anyway, and said she's an illegitimate offspring. However, she was forced to abdicate, so needed shelter. So figured that, well, her cousin was the best person she could trust. However, 2 days later, she found herself incarcerated for 19 years and then beheaded. So she went from great opulence as the Queen of Scots to being in jail for 19 years and then beheaded. Very bloody times. I mean, it was a real mess. But, like I'm trying to bring out the point, Queen Elizabeth, look at her beautiful reign. For, she really shone as a jewel in God's crown. Anyway, I've said then, fast forward from the medieval times to Queen Elizabeth I comes along on the scene at Queen Elizabeth II was born 1926 and died at 2022 in 8th of September, just gone, at the ripe old age of 96 after nearly 71 years on the throne. But I really see the correlation of like I titled this essay, Jewels versus Javelins, because clearly Queen Elizabeth II was a real jewel on behalf of Christ's name. She held to the Christian faith and she lived above reproach. She was able to leave this world in a wake of mourning. I mean, a virtuous woman shall be praised. A woman who fears the Lord. Beauty is deceiving, but a woman who fears the Lord shall be praised. And she was a woman who feared the Lord. She was humble and meek and sacrificed her own rights to just, run her own show sort of thing. to serve the people according to her vow that she made before she even had the throne. When she was 21, she vowed that when she became queen, she would serve the people, whether short or long, all her days, and she did that. She had a mental faculties, bright as a button, to the very last at the age of 96, and so she was an absolute gem, and so she was granted from high diamonds and pearls because she was the Queen of England, absolute top of the heap. And I've said for my deal that I've been granted scrunchies and curls. This is natural curly hair, but I have to work it with mousse to scrunch it, or else work it with a straightening iron to straighten it, because otherwise my hair looks like alfalfa. That's the hair God gave me. So any complaints, you need to take that to God, but this is what I've got to work with. So I try to work well with what I've got. And this is what I brought forth from the parable of Matthew 25, verses 13 to 30, where Jesus told a parable likening the kingdom of heaven to a master who goes off for a long journey, and he calls together his servants. And to one he gives 5 talents and says, occupy till I come. To another servant he gives 2 talents and says, make this brief reduce. And to a third servant he gave 1 talent. God gives to us according to our ability. He knows what we're capable of. So Queen Elizabeth was born to royalty, and she proved herself worthy. And she was well able to be a good queen, even though the so-called political correct hierarchy of our day reduced her to a figurehead. She, compared to the power that queens used to wield, she was faithful to her vow of serving the people according to the need. So even though she was reduced to a ceremonial type status, like she didn't make any arbitrary decisions, and even her speeches were written for her, but no doubt she had a say about what she was willing to actually say in public. But, she was basically a figurehead, like a mascot to be seen, so then, and this is the thing, men run the world, like whether, and so I relate to the Queen, so I'm not trying to be disparaging, and I've said in my essay, lest I be misconstrued, I would like to clarify, I hold her in high esteem. As a female in ministry who knows only too well that men run the show, I sort of am in no way downplaying her role. She did what she did well, because she was faithful to her vow, and she humbled herself under the mighty hand of God. And you will notice that she lived to a ripe old age of 96 compared to all those that get ousted for, power struggles and whatnot. So, if we do things right by God, he honours those who honour him. And she was a Christian lady who was able to leave behind a good name, because she did not bring reproach to Christ's name. Anyway, in the parable of the talents, when the Lord comes back after a long time, he calls together his servants. The Father, what Jesus was getting at, he was telling this parable to his people. The empires of this world, they serve Babylon, they serve the almighty dollar, so their consolation is their industry on earth. So they've all got to, vie and crawl all over the top of each other and trample each other down and whatnot. All their power struggles, because everything that they have is pertaining to this life, this transitory realm, and it will all go up in smoke, because they're all serving that system. They're all on the broad road that leads to destruction. But Jesus was telling this parable of Matthew 25, verses 13 to 30, to his people, to we who claim his name, we are accountable for what we do with his name. Queen Elizabeth too claimed the name of Christ. She was a Christian. She said this from the very start, God put me on the throne, and she never brought shame to that. So many of the royals all have, a tarnished name in one way or other. They're just human. I'm not trying to put them down and just stating the fact. I mean, I'm the last person would judge anybody. I'm a modern-day Mary Magdalene myself. But God uses whom he will use. It's up to God what he does. He deliberately, like 1 Corinthians 1:27 says, he deliberately chooses the weak and the foolish things of this world to confound those that think they're mighty and wise, sort of thing. So, we've all got our strengths and weaknesses, but this is the point of the parable, is that we've got to work with what we've got, and the what Paul wrote about in a great house is all kinds of vessels, so you've got to purge yourself of the ones that are to dishonour, and so that we can be fit, timely vessels for the Lord to make use of in his great house. But anyway, I've got so many details here that I get lost in them, and then it gives me a mental block. But anyway, Queen Elizabeth did her job well, where she shone for the Lord with her diamonds and pearls. But when you think about a diamond is a lump of coal, so carbon originally, and I see myself as like an opal, where I've got different colours and whatnot. But both are gems, both are precious in God's sight, but we all have our different jobs to do. So the parable of the talents was that Queen Elizabeth I relate to being like the servant who got 5 talents. When the Lord came back, he said, "Yeah, what have you done with my talents?" And that servant was able to say, "I've produced another 5 talents, so 10 talents total." And he said, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant, enter thou into the joy of the Lord. And you was faithful over a few things, you'll be made ruler over much." To the servant that he gave 2 talents, which I liken myself to, where I've got scrunchies and curls to work with, but I shine well, and just work with what I've got, because I've got a spirit of excellence on me. I'm able to do a good job just working with what I've got. So when the Lord comes back to that servant who he gave 2 talents to, and that servant is able to say, "You gave me 2 talents, I produced 2 talents more," and the master said to him, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. You've been faithful over a few things. You'll be made ruler over much." He said the same thing to that servant who had two talents and produced another 2, to what he said to the one he gave 5 talents, who produced another 5. It's not a matter of quantity, but rather quality. And so I made the point in the essay that this is why it's foolish for ministers to be trying to notch up numbers, because most of them are false conversions, and most of them will not withstand the fires. So because we all get tried by fire, and only those vessels that are found, only our works that are found able to withstand the fires will survive. Anything else gets burned up as stubble and chaff, but the true believers, even if our work gets burned up, we will be saved even as by fire. But nobody likes to go through the fires, the furnace of affliction. I've been there, and it's not fun. But anyway, the third servant, who when the Lord came back and said, "What have you done with my 1 talent that I gave you?" he said to him, "Well, I knew that you're a hard taskmaster, so you reap where you haven't sowed, so I wrapped your 1 talent in a napkin and hid it in the ground. Here, you can have back what's yours." And the master said, "Well, now, wicked, slothful servant, you knew I'm a hard master. You know I reap where I don't sow. You should have at least put it in the bank, so I could have received mine own with usury. Cast him out with the hypocrites, there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth." So this was a parable that Jesus told to his people. He expects us to produce fruit. We are to occupy till he comes. He's gone since 2,000 years ago, but he's promised he will be coming back, and he will give a crown of life to all who love him. So in James 1, we're told that all who love him, Christ has promised a crown of life. In Revelation 3, I think it is, there's the promise to the martyrs that where Jesus said, "Be faithful even unto death, and I will give you a crown of life." So those that have lost their life through the medieval ages and through Jewry, and just all those who, for the sake of the kingdom, they will be, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The meek shall inherit the earth. So basically, I'm just saying, look at the difference. Queen Elizabeth II, her job was to simply be an ensign, a beacon to the world. So look at her life, scroll through on Google all her history and whatnot. It's a very interesting study, actually. Like, I've had quite an educational time with this, just Googling the different members of the royal family through that medieval time, and it's quite eye-opening what all has gone on, and to bring to us the Christian Protestant faith. And so it's so very sad to see powers that be trying to shift it all back to Catholicism again. All roads lead to Rome, and Revelation 13 says about the second beast. Revelation 13 causes all the world to bow to the first beast, and I see the second beast being communism. So nobody's allowed to be any different than anybody else. You've all got to just bow to the beast, and then you'll survive, sort of thing. But otherwise, you can't buy or sell, and they'll put trade sanctions on you and all sorts, which we're seeing in this day and age. But things are what they are. The Bible has warned us in advance of how it all is going to be. So I wanted to show just a little object lesson, because I like to do these things. But how God has been letting me in this my two talent ministry shine for the Lord, because Queen Elizabeth shone big in her way, and so her life, even though she has now died, her works do follow her. Anybody who looks at her life knows she was up to it. My life, hopefully and prayerfully, I shall live the rest of my days without reproach after blowing it big time up until the age of 32. 1 month before I turned 32, I entered into new covenant with God and have been absolutely squeaky clean ever since, because I know what God's trying to save me from now. He's trying to save us from our own sins, from our own selves, but also from the boogeyman out there that would kill us in a moment if he could. So anyway, for my deal, I've been really enjoying, and I must say I'm glad I wasn't born a royal, because on one hand, if anybody in a influential position is targeted, so I mean I'm targeted no less than anybody else. We're all sitting ducks really in this day and hour, but God is letting me just to do what I've got to do, where I'm able to speak with authority, because I fear, no one makes me afraid. And that's one of the promises that Jesus gave us, that when we are true disciples, we'll be filled with the Holy Spirit, we receive a holy anointing, which gives us boldness, like what Peter was suddenly transformed with, where 1 minute he's denying Christ, and the next minute he's, willing to be jailed and, just no longer cared for his own life. So I just do what I've got to do, whether people think I'm unorthodox or, they don't like my style or whatever. I'm doing what I do as unto the Lord. He has called me to be an ensign to a dark and perverse generation, and I'm the ideal person to be able to speak into this generation, because I used to be there. I used to be on the broad road, tried it all. I know what I'm talking about. So I'm just having fun doing what I do. If I had been born in the royal family, I would have had all that protocol. That would have been very constraining. But like I say, Queen Elizabeth too, I admire how she did what she did. She was very elegant, very colourful, really shone brightly, but she had a lot of constraints that she had to come under. And I sort of think, wow, that would be hard. But she was born to it, so she was primed for it. She knew that from the very outstart. But I'm gifted with the world will try to conform you, and the world in the religious system will try to conform you into moulding into their archetype of what a Christian should be, or what a woman should be, or what their idea of the fad at the time should be, sort of thing. But I'm thankful I've got the mind of Christ to think for myself and see what liberty does the Bible give me. And I don't have to live under the curse of the law. I can operate and exercise my faith according to whatever liberty God gives me. He has imbued me with a artistic streak, where I've got a colourful streak, so therefore, and a spirit of excellence on me, where I like to do it all right. So when I was 40 years old, I had a vision where I saw myself as a wizened old lady with long grey hair right down past my backside, wearing a caftan. And the funny, like, I've got a sense of humour, believe it or not, but I was bonking people on the head with a parrot head cane, saying, "Get it right, sonny." But anyway, that was when I was 40, and my hair was only like shoulder length at that time. But I took it to heart. I thought, I think this would be a good way to age gracefully. I won't dye my hair or anything when I get older. I'll let it age, just go with the flow here of whatever God determines. Here I am, still brunette at 57, and natural curl and whatnot. But because I started growing my fringe out early this year, I've worn a fringe for the last 10 years, but my hair's getting too long for that now. And to keep the balance of things, I've got to now let my fringe grow out. So I'm wearing my hair out of the way in high set plaits, and just one plait, high set. And because I've got that artistic streak, I want to do it right. So I wear a scrunchie at the top and a wrap around the bottom of the plait. So when I say a wrap, it's just a scrunchie that I've cut the elastic out of, so that it's not all scrunched up, otherwise it crawls up the plait. So I've got to be able to wrap it around without any elastic. And you've got to do these things right. If you're going to be artistic, you've got to do it right. So I've been really delighting to see. I'm a woman who lives by faith. When I had a well-paid job, I was buying, gold and sapphires and diamonds and this sort of thing. But when I got entered into new covenant with God, I gave it all away. Instead of like how Jesus said in Mark 10, sell what you've got and give to the poor and whatnot, I just gave it away because I wanted to just avail myself for ministry. So now I've got this collection of costume jewellery, but very nice. I mean, it looks every bit as nice as the real thing. It's just cut glass, but you know, all different colours. Like for my 57th birthday from my brother, I've got a pink cubic zirconia, a beautiful sparkling necklace to match the pink glass earrings in silver that my sister sent me earlier in the year. They weren't a birthday present, but you know, they've got their match. And earlier, also at that same time, my sister gave me a cut glass blue earrings and necklace matching. And so I've got all this beautiful jewellery that sparkles and shines every bit as much as, you know, the real thing. But it's just cheap stuff now, which but still looks good. But for my, I'll finish about my scrunchies first, and then I'll bring in the bit about my birthday clothing. But it's been marvellous to see how God provides for me, because when I dumped my job, it was a matter of unless God caught me in his hand when I took a leap of faith to move interstate to Queensland, I would fall flat on my face. But here I am nearly 21 years later, and not only have I existed, but have thrived in quality living. You know, I mean, it's been marvellous. You've only got to follow my ministry or my different testimony that I give in different videos and newsletters, and you'll see I've had a good life. But yet I was willing to go sleep in the dust of India or go to the heat of the tropics in the Congo or whatever, or the outback of Australia. I would have gone anywhere that God would have told me, but he took me from one cushy environment in Katoomba in New South Wales and brought me to Toowoomba in Queensland. You would have to ask an Aborigine what that meaning is of Oomba, but I suspect, my theory is that Toowoomba means like North Mountain Heights, and Katoomba means like South Mountain Heights, maybe. That's just my guess. But both are mountain heights. Katoomba is 1,000 metres above sea level. Toowoomba is 700 metres above sea level. And so God gave me Toowoomba for Katoomba equals recompense. He doesn't abandon plan A just because we blow it. So God moved me to still be his ensign. When I was living in Katoomba, he plucked me like a brand from the fire out of my debaucherous druggy days in Sydney and rose me up as a golden girl of Blue Mountain City Council, and I was to be an ensign. However, the fowler laid a snare for my feet. I walked straight into it, fell from grace through fornication, had a hellish season for 7 years, but now, lo and behold, here I am in Queensland after having entered new covenant with God on the 24th of September 97 after a 7-year hellish season, and my life is now above reproach. So like I say, I had this vision when I was 40 to grow my hair long and grey, so I'm just in the program doing whatever God puts in my head. So it's been marvellous to see how God provides for me big things, medium things, piddly things. You know, he's into detail. It's amazing. But scrunchies. So, you know, like I say, Queen Elizabeth got given diamonds and pearls, and power to her. But I got given scrunchies and curls. You know, we work with what we got. So and she shone in her way, and I shine in my way. So I see her like a diamond. I'm the opal. You know, we've got our shine, but we're different quality. But it's like I say, it's not quantity, it's quality with God's reckoning. We're all equal as far as his reckoning of his precious treasures. So he just gives us what to work with while we're here in this time of testing on earth. And then eternity, we're just all in unity of one spirit, all serving the Lord, and it'll be glory, glory. Wonderful. Anyway, I've been finding scrunchies everywhere I go, let alone where before I was finding money everywhere I go, and I still do. But, and, you know, I find all kinds of things. Just recently I put on Facebook this whacking great pot, beautiful pot for putting plants in, and everybody knows I'm into gardening, but that was just out on my escarpment walk last weekend, so I bunged it into the back of my hatch and nearly filled the whole hatch and brought it home. And I've got a spider plant sitting it now nicely tucked on the porch, and no damage to it or anything, good pot. And you know, I don't know how much you'd pay for that in a nursery, but it was from God. It was God letting me to work with home and garden. But he's also been providing little things like scrunchies for my hair growth program, so that I can put my artistic streak into good use of wearing my matching scrunchies, top and bottom, where I snip the elastic out so I can wrap around the bottom and have my scrunchie at the top. It's just so. Anyway, I had a need, if you could call it a need, for a match for this little wrap that I've got. It's actually turquoise, but it looks blue on the video. But I went to cosmetics, Discount Cosmetics, and they've got this vast array of all kinds of colours. So nobody could have possibly known the colour that I had in my mind. I never spoke it to anybody. I was just looking for a match for this turquoise wrap. And but there was one only turquoise scrunchie in the store. It was like a part of a twin pack or whatever, but I forget what the other colour was. But it had this turquoise scrunchy, but it wasn't quite a deep enough hue. But I was tempted. I really wanted it just to get on with the plan sort of thing. But really, I would have still been looking for a darker one because it wasn't really what I needed. So I managed to sit on my flesh and die to that. But it was very, very tempting. I had a bit of a wrestle over it actually. Anyway, I did the right thing and died to my flesh. Didn't let my flesh dictate and call the shots with my free will. Very next day, I'm walking along minding my business and nearly just a dog's leg from home where there, lo and behold, is this perfect colour scrunchie, deep turquoise. Like I say, they look blue, but they're actually turquoise. Unusual turquoise colour, not quite blue, not quite green. Deep, perfect to go with that. I can wear my plait now, top and bottom. That was God. And I marvel, I came home, took a photo, sent it to my fans, said, wow, look at this. Nobody could have known what I was looking for. I never told anybody. And there it is, just sitting in the path for me to find a dog's leg from home. No fraying, no damage. I put it through the washing machine so it's hygienically clean. Anytime I find them, I bung them through the washing machine. And, but I mean, there it is, this top quality scrunchie to go with my wrap. That's example one. I've only got 4 examples here, so bear with me, but I've got a tray just this year. I had a handful of scrunchies which last well. I've had mine for decades, like some from Blue Mountains days, over 30 years old, some more than 2 decades from Woodridge days, and some, or first moving to Queensland, or when I went to America in 2001, I've got a couple there that were so more than two decades. But they last, so this is an investment in shining for the Lord, in just working with what I've got sort of thing. So it's not wasted money if, anybody's thinking, well, she's spending money on lots and lots of scrunchies. But I must have about 200 scrunchies now. But, you can halve that to be 100 arrangement sort of thing because, like I say, I wear 2 at a time with top and bottom of my plait. But, God is clearly for me in this because what's money to God if he gives me every cent that I have anyway ultimately, and he clearly is providing for me to do what I'm doing, to express through my ministry of 2 talents that I'm an ensign to just live my life where none makes me afraid sort of thing because I can just serve one master. And this is the liberty of Christians, is that we don't have to bow to other people's attempts to conform us into their image. We can be transformed by the Holy Spirit into serving the Father, and like Christ did, and like all those that have been martyred to some degree, and we always get persecuted if we don't run with them to their excesses, but then they speak evil of us, but that's okay. Anyway, I love the praise of God more than the praises of men, so he keeps pouring it on to because he knows that every time he blesses me, it resounds in praise to his name because I just love to testify. I love, I'm designed to be a worshipper. That's my number one duty, is to worship the Lord. So anyway, for time's sake, I'll move this along. Second example of scrunchie finds is that I had these 2 scrunchies and they were my grey match, but this one is darker, more suited to charcoal. That one's more, this was all scrunchy and this was my wrap for the bottom of that. But that's more lighter, more suited to silvery grey. That's more charcoal grey. I'm walking along, find an upsized silvery grey so that I was able to cut the elastic out of that one. So now I've got for lighter grey outfit or for darker grey outfit. That's God's doing. Another one, I had this unusual peachy pink. It looks pink on the video, but it's actually peachy pink in real life, unusual pink. And I resisted getting another one because there was a leopard one with it, and I didn't want to sort of get too many leopards, even though they're slightly different in hue. But like one's a white leopard type, and one's a brown leopard type. But I had this peachy pink that I didn't have a match for exact, and I was going to just sort of fudge it. But then when I wanted to wear this top that was exact, it sort of seemed, just my perfectionist streak, I wanted to do it right. So anyway, I wound up going and getting the second one. It was the last one in the store, And when I went to go check out, the price on the shelf was $3.50, but it's scanned at $1. So for 50 cents, because it was a twin pack, I wound up with my other scrunchie to do perfect, where I can picture perfect now, scrunchie for the top, wrap for the bottom, voila, that was God again. So now to my birthday wardrobe. My mum sent me money and I fluked across a brand name. Like I normally do op shopping for my clothes, and I find brand new clothes with boutique tags still attached in the op shop. So for minimal dollars, I get to dress nice. But for my birthday, I used my birthday money to go boutique shopping because that's change of season from winter to springtime. So clearance sales. So I get all these great bargains. But at boutique stores, so that's my special time of year sort of thing. But I found this U-Butte long skirt right down to the ankles, Forever New brand, which they're expensive, and that's normally not a store I would go into. But this one happened to be on a clearance carousel out the front of a store that I would not normally go in, and came away with this beautiful long skirt, which then I needed tops to match it. So with Mum's birthday money, I went out and found this beautiful Rockman's top, a $30 store-wide sale at Rockman's. This was normally $65, so under half price. But that's the price. I used to shop at Rockman's back when I had my well-paid job. I was paying $30 back in 1993. So with inflation, $65 now. So I got it for 1993 price all these years later. So that was, I got all this range of colour, sort of neutral colour to go with this very pale pink long skirt. And then, bought other tops with Mum's money. No sooner had I spent Mum's money than my brother gave me money. So I went and got this pink cubic zirconia necklace to match the earrings that my sister had sent me earlier in the year. So now I had this sparkling necklace, beautiful. And no sooner had I spent his money than my sister, who sent me the earrings, sent me money. So now I went back to the Grand Central Plaza mall crawling and checking out all the shops, but I wound up buying most of the stuff from Valley Girl, and I didn't even know they were there sort of thing, but I wound up back there 4 times within a week and came away with these really beautiful garments. All these you can see on my Facebook site, so like I say, check into Facebook if you want to see my birthday collage. But anyway, no sooner had I spent her money on all these gorgeous garments and all on clearance, like getting all these clearance sales. I saved about $200 compared to what the full price labels were telling me. So, good value. Like God just ordered my steps to walk into the right stores. And but there was, 2 main stores that I went to, but a few other stores too. But anyway, no sooner had and no sooner had I spent her money than my brother sent me more money. So then I was back to the Grand Central Plaza and did, another round. And so I wound up with all these gorgeous garments plus a beautiful sparkling necklace. But what I wanted to say about the scrunchie deal was after finding Mum's range of the neutral colours, like with my sister's money, I did amber and some other range. And so it's quite a variety with my brothers. I did black and like more dark range and then the pink necklace and whatnot. But my mother's range was neutral colours. And it was, and that was at the start, before I knew that I had all this other coming to me sort of thing. And so it really tickled me when I just finished spending Mum's money on this neutral range of colour coordination, and I like to colour coordinate, taking my walk, and lo and behold, there's this neutral beige scrunchie, which I'll put it through the washing machine. So now it goes with I haven't got the wrap there, but I've got a beige wrap that I was fudging with before. So I said to my family, I sent them a photo. I said, and I sent the photos of the clothing range that I bought with Mum's money. I said, I've just finished buying this colour scheme and God blesses me with a scrunchie to go with it sort of thing. So this is God's doing, and it really tickles me, like I love, as my mother said, it's good if we can keep childlike faith where we get tickled over small things like that. And, even just a rhema, like a personal word from the Bible, is more valuable to me than the trip to America that God gave me, or the travel, or, the luxury townhouse. So those biggies really thrill me. But a word from God's scriptures that expressly speaks to what I'm taking to the throne, that is the most valuable thing to me, because it lets me know my husband hears me. He hears those who call on his name, who truly seek him with a whole heart. So that to me is my guarantee that I can speak forth boldly and with confidence and with authority, because I know I know that I know that I know that I am called by Almighty God. I'm here, put here by God, just like Queen Elizabeth II knew that she was put on the throne by God. You know, her father was only 56 when he died from pneumonia. I had double pneumonia when I was a baby of 18 months old, not even 2 years old yet. I didn't have it in one lung, I had it in both lungs after spending the night on the floor in freezing cold Blue Mountains. The doctors wrote me off, told Dad and Mum make arrangements, she's a goner. But Dad and Mum were of the Christian faith, and here I am where I got blessed with a twofold recompense of health. The devil tried to steal my health, tried to kill me off as a baby, and I wound up with uncanny strength and endurance, where some of my birthday photos are doing weight because of a couple of the tops that I bought, the sporty tops. But I mean, God blessed me with health. So the devil tried to wipe me out again in my teenage years because I've got an addictive personality. He got me hooked on all kinds of drugs and abusive substances so that I would self-destruct. But then God replaced that with an addiction for sport. So now I've got this healthy thing to fill the gap of after God delivered me cold turkey from drugs and alcohol and tobacco and all those unhealthy vices. So anything that we need to have dealt with in our life to be an example, an ensign for Christ, God will see to it that he can transforms us into the image of his son, where nobody can, we're not giving the enemy cause to blaspheme his name, because when we do that, like what I did when I fell from grace, God will, he chastens, whom he loves he chastens, but he doesn't quit on plan A. He just moved me up to Toowoomba, and here I am, still planted by God as a tree of righteousness. And we who are planted by the river of water, our leaf does not fade. So here I am, still brunette at 57, and I'm sort of ready to get on with the plan and turning grey. I've got this vision to have long grey hair right down past my backside, and I'm collecting all these photos of women with beautiful long grey hair. I'm excited to go silver, doesn't bother me at all. I have no intention of dyeing my hair or, being in slavery to having to touch up my hair roots like I used to when I was a blonde or whatever colour I used to go with. But it's exciting and fun when we are on God's plan. And I'm not trying to, like the more sort of conservative types to say, oh, she's saying fun, that's a counterfeit of joy and whatnot. But there is joy unspeakable when you are planted in the palm of God's hand, and he has happened to see fit to keep me as a female in a chauvinistic domain. God gave me internet ministry, so I'm able to just strut my stuff anyway, fan my peacock feathers, do what I got to do, and it works because God just keeps blessing me with scrunchies or jewellery or gorgeous garments, whether from boutiques or from the op shops with brand new boutique tags still attached, or housing or transport, or 3 cars since I've been in Queensland. Whatever I need, nice big pot, put my plants in out in the porch there. Whatever I need, God knows, and he often puts the desire in our heart to believe for, and then when we exercise our faith, then he rewards us, he rewards our faith, and then he gives them the next desire. And so then we believe for that, exercise our faith, then he blesses us, and then we give him praise, and then he gives us the next desire, and on it goes. So Queen Elizabeth had 70 plus years enjoying her term on the throne. Now King Charles III is on the throne. So I've quoted from Romans 13 about how we need to pay tribute to whom tribute is due, and fear to whom fear, honour to whom honour. He is on the throne because God puts in places the people of power. So the nation is in mourning, and naturally they're sort of grieving that they want their Queen Elizabeth II still, sort of thing. And so there are those sort of disparaging King Charles III and saying we don't want him as king and whatnot. But he is king. That's the bottom line. He's there by God's decree. And so I'm just trying to say, work with what we've got. As unto the Lord, even if you can't in the natural want to be supportive of him, as unto the Lord. If you are a Christian, if you claim to adhere to the Bible, you need to, as unto the Lord, let God's word prevail in your judgments and thoughts. So as far as I'm concerned, King Charles III is on the throne. He's now the King of Australia. We are in that Commonwealth realm. And like I closed off the essay, and I shall need to close off this video now for time, but I've gone over time, but it's needs just things that need to be said and examples that need to be shown as a proving and an ensign for the Lord that God is alive and watching over. So Queen Elizabeth II is now passed away, but I believe we don't resurrect until that certain day, like 1 Thessalonians 4:16 says that when the last trump sounds, future tense, then Christ shall return in the air. Then those asleep in the grave, it now includes Queen Elizabeth II, and we alive on the earth, if Jesus happens to come while I'm still alive on the earth, otherwise I too shall sleep in the grave. But whoever is alive, who are true believers, and whoever is asleep in the graves as true believers shall rise up to meet Christ on that day, according to 1 Thessalonians 4:16. So I fully expect to see Queen Elizabeth II again on that day, and when we are in our glorified state, and all this sparkle and shine that we got to enjoy throughout our happy lives, living for the Lord on earth as His handmaids, it will pale into absolute insignificance compared to what we've got coming to us. I mean, the best is yet to come. It is going to be absolutely astounding. The streets of gold, the pearly gates, and just the city made of all kinds of precious stones. We have no idea, eye has not seen, ear has not heard what God has laid up in store for the household of faith. So, like I finished off the essay and shall finish off this video, I would like to just conclude by saying, rest in peace, QE2, rest in peace. Amen.